Good evening, you are watching ReNEWS in English. I'm Sana Tumanyan. The Prime Minister of the Republic of Armenia has departed for the United States. Rumors that had been circulating since the beginning of the week regarding a trilateral meeting have been confirmed. The meeting between Pashinyan and Aliyev with Donald Trump will take place tomorrow. Foreign Minister Mirzoyan, Secretary of the Security Council Armen Grigoryan, the Minister of High-Tech Industry and the head of the Civil Contract Faction Haik Gonjarian, who also heads the Armenia-US Friendship Group, have departed for Washington with Pashinyan. Media outlets sourcing information from anonymous White House sources are reporting on a memorandum of intent that has a symbolic text. According to a statement from the Armenian government, the meeting is aimed at promoting peace, prosperity, and economic cooperation in the region. Azerbaijan clarified its demands before departing for America: the dissolution of the OSCE Minsk Group, a constitutional amendment, and the so-called Zangezur corridor. The latter is the key issue for Baku. An Azerbaijani member of parliament said today that during the visit, it is planned to discuss such fundamental issues as the matter of the Zangezur corridor. Ahead of the meeting, the Armenian National Committee of America has issued a statement. It expresses concern that possible statements or agreements may not include such important issues for the Armenian people as the right of the Artsakh Armenians to return to their homes, the release of Armenian prisoners of war and hostages by Azerbaijan, the international protection of Armenian holy sites, and the withdrawal of Azerbaijani armed forces from the sovereign territory of Armenia. Today's regular government session was chaired by Deputy Prime Minister Meher Grigoryan. The agenda for today's cabinet meeting includes 30 items, of which 26 are non-reported, 1 is secret, and only 3 are for reporting. By a decision of the Executive Training, assemblies have been announced for reservists registered in the first and second categories of the first group of the reserve, including the private, non-commissioned, and officer corps. The assemblies will be held for a 3-month period from September 15 to December 15. 2025 inclusive. It is noted that the training assemblies are being announced for the purpose of improving the military skills of citizens registered in the reserve, for professional retraining and training, and for preparing reserve officers from the non-commissioned officer corps who have higher education. There has long been talk of a visit by the president of Iran to Armenia. September was mentioned as a tentative time frame. Now, from the statement of Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, it has become clear that Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian will arrive in Armenia on an official visit within the next 2 weeks.
Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian is coming to Armenia on an official visit. This news, which had been circulating for several months, was confirmed 2 days after the announcement of Prime Minister Pashinyan's visit to Washington. Tomorrow, the Prime Minister of Armenia and the President of Azerbaijan will meet at the White House with the facilitation of U.S. President Trump, an adversary of Iran. The political and expert fields in Iran are not silent. According to specialists, the goal is to persuade Armenia not to, under any circumstances, outsource its path to an American organization. Mahmoud Ahmadi-Begish, a former member of the Iranian Parliament's National Security and Foreign Policy Committee, believes that Tehran should not have so openly sided with Azerbaijan in either the First or Second Karabakh Wars, as this led to a loss of trust from Armenia.
If we were in the place of Armenia or Karabakh, could we trust Iran? I would say no, we would not trust them under any circumstances.
A current member of the same committee expressed Iran's unchanged position for the umpteenth time.
The issue of the launch of the so-called Zangezur corridor is not yet resolved, but the Americans are watching it closely and are trying to implement this project as quickly as possible. It could become a direct threat to regional security and Iran's interests.
Ali Akbar Veliati, an advisor to Iran's supreme leader, had also stated that the opening of the so-called Zangezur corridor would put Iran and Russia into a land blockade. He also said that Iran would react sharply to it. For many political scientists, Pashinyan's upcoming meeting with Aliyev is an attempt to replace the failed November 9 trilateral statement with what might be a more stable peace treaty on a Western platform. This would directly mean changing the vector from Moscow to Washington, Iran's enemy. Simon Havedisin, ReOpen Media.
After the 3-hour negotiations between Putin and Wittkopf, it became clear that a one-on-one meeting between Trump and Putin is on the horizon. Donald Trump may meet with Vladimir Putin next week to pressure Russia to stop the war in Ukraine, including by imposing secondary sanctions against China. This would be the first Putin-Trump meeting since the 2021 Putin-Biden meeting. Nevertheless, Trump might impose tariffs on China for buying oil from Russia. This scenario has already played out in the case of India. Today, the focus of the international newsfeed, in addition to the U.S.-Russia negotiations, is also centered on new military operations by Israel. The Lebanese NNA news agency reports that this time the Israeli army has launched a series of airstrikes on the city of Nabatea in southern Lebanon. According to the information, a parking lot for cars and construction equipment located near a residential area in Deir Sedian was shelled. There are casualties, and the Israeli media is not silent on this either. Channel 12 television reported that the attacks were aimed at Hezbollah's military infrastructure. One person has died in southern Lebanon as a result of an attack by an Israeli army unmanned aerial vehicle. According to the NNA News, Israeli army drone struck a motorcycle near the town of Tulin in southern Lebanon. The chaos of the world's newsfeed is coordinated by David Genjoyan.
Donald Trump may meet with Vladimir Putin next week to pressure Russia to end the war in Ukraine, including through the imposition of secondary sanctions against China. This would be the first meeting between the incumbent presidents of the U.S. and Russia since June 2021, when Joe Biden met with Putin in Geneva. Trump has also stated that you might impose additional tariffs on China for purchasing oil from Russia, as he did with India. Volodymyr Zelensky has stated that Russia is more inclined towards a ceasefire following the visit of Trump's envoy Steve Witkoff to Moscow, but the details of the agreement are crucial, and Russia must not deceive either Ukraine or the U.S. Donald Trump mentioned that Witkoff's meeting with Putin led to great progress, but did not provide details. Although Witkoff's visit was assessed as effective, a White House official announced that secondary sanctions against Russia would be imposed on Friday. 3 people were killed and 4 were injured as a result of Russian artillery strikes in the city of Nikopol, according to the governor of Dnipropetrovsk. The attack occurred on the Ukrainian-controlled northern bank of the Dnipro River, where Nikopol is frequently subjected to Russian strikes. According to Ukrainian sources, the strike damaged the state emergency services vehicle, and one of the deceased was an emergency worker. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has instructed diplomats at American embassies in European countries to begin a lobbying campaign against the EU's Digital Services Act, which Washington believes restricts freedom of speech and imposes financial costs on American technology companies. A classified report from August 4th states that the EU imposes unnecessary restrictions on freedom of speech in its fight against hate speech and disinformation. Diplomats have been instructed to investigate cases of free speech violations and persuade EU governments to revise or repeal the law. Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, stated in a televised interview that the upcoming visit of the deputy director of the International Atomic Energy Agency to Tehran is aimed at discussing a framework for cooperation rather than conducting inspections or assessments. He noted that the invitation was extended in accordance with the law passed by the Islamic Consultative Assembly and pertains to Iran's peaceful nuclear program. Araghchi dismissed speculations about negotiations with the U.S., emphasizing that future talks would depend on Iran's interests. 4 high-ranking officials and crew members were killed in a plane crash in Ghana. All passengers died, including Minister of Defense Edward Aman Bouama, Minister of Environment Ibrahim Murtala Mohammed, Vice Chairman of the National Democratic Congress Samuel Sarpong, and National Security Advisor Munira Mohammed. The military helicopter had departed from the capital, Accra, heading to the Obuasi gold mining region in the northwest, disappeared from radar shortly after, and its wreckage was later found. A period of mourning has been declared in the country. David Genjoyan, ReOpen Media.
Yesterday, the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza was discussed at an emergency session of the UN Security Council at the request of Israel. I spoke about this briefly yesterday, and now let's take everything in order. My colleagues have prepared a report. The agenda for the session included everything from the demand for the release of Hamas hostages to the 200 deaths due to starvation.
Israel convened a meeting of the UN Security Council to demand the release of hostages held by Hamas. The day before, the ruling group in Gaza had released a video of an emaciated 24-year-old Jewish hostage. Members of the Security Council noted that they sympathize with the Israeli hostages, but the dire situation of more than 2 million Palestinians dying of starvation also deserves attention. Most of the council accused Israel of inciting a humanitarian crisis in Gaza.
The latest reports regarding Prime Minister Netanyahu's possible decision to expand Israel's military operations through the entire Gaza Strip, if true, are deeply alarming. This would risk catastrophic consequences for millions of Palestinians and could further endanger the lives of the remaining hostages in Gaza.
According to the Gaza Ministry of Health, nearly 200 people have died of starvation, half of them children. The Israeli foreign minister participating in the session tried to justify the accusations against his country and accused critics of spreading anti-Israel falsehoods, because according to Gideon Sa'ar, his country allows a huge amount of aid into Gaza, but it is looted by Hamas. During the UN Security Council meeting, a return to peace negotiations was also announced, and it was stressed that forced territorial changes are inadmissible.
There is no military solution to the conflict in Gaza or the broader Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We must establish political and security frameworks that can relieve the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza, start early recovery and reconstruction, address the legitimate security concerns of Israelis and Palestinians, and secure an end to Israel's unlawful occupation and achieve a sustainable two-state solution. Israel and a fully independent, democratic, contiguous, viable, and sovereign Palestinian state, of which Gaza is an integral part, living side by side in peace and security within secure and recognized borders on the basis of the pre-1967 lines, with Jerusalem as the capital of both states.
And until these goals are achieved, the humanitarian situation in Gaza continues to worsen. The population faces a severe shortage of food and drinking water. The people of Gaza suffer every day in displacement camps, living in tents that are not suitable for summer or winter. In addition, there is severe malnutrition. Without any fruit, vegetables, or meat, the humanitarian situation in Gaza is catastrophic. This is a big crisis, a very big crisis, whether it's clean water or salt water, especially in the summer when our people's main need is water, and we suffer a lot from this every day. God help us.
All the barrels are empty. Here is 1, 2, 3. They are empty, and we don't know how to fill them. Behind you is another one, completely empty. What should we do? There is not a single drop of water, not a single drop. Where should we go? Who should we turn to? How do we fill them? We can barely find a little clean water for the children to drink.
3 factions in the European Parliament are accusing Israel of committing genocide in Gaza. Their leaders have sent a letter to the leadership of the European Union demanding that immediate measures be taken against the Jewish state. David Ginjoan, ReOpen Media.
ReOpen media journalists have also followed the trail of the announcement by the future Nobel laureate Trump. $15,000 for a visa. Who should pay and how? Let's dispel the fog of unanswered questions with a report.
The United States government may require a bond of up to $15,000 for certain tourist and business visas. According to an official notice from the federal government, the program's goal is to prevent the illegal residency of visitors who overstay their visas. Under the program, U.S. consular services will have the right to take a bond from citizens of countries whose residents most frequently violate their visa terms. Additionally, a bond may also be required from citizens of states whose screening and vetting systems, that is, the process of checking an individual's background, are considered inadequate.
So if you're coming over here, and if it's $60,000 for a family of 4 or $15,000 for one, well, what's the problem? If you're going to do what you say you're going to do, then why would you stay one more day? Why don't you leave a week early? You know, be responsible. So in my opinion, that sounds legitimate.
One of the most central points of President Donald Trump's program is the fight against illegal immigration. He has increased funding for border protection agencies and tightened immigration policy, including by issuing a travel ban in June 2024 to restrict or completely prohibit the entry into the U.S. of citizens from 19 countries on national security grounds.
Seems like everything that's happening every day
Keeps
just gets
people
worse
away.
and worse. Nothing shocks me anymore.
The program's duration is 1 year. Consuls will have a choice between 3 different bond options: $5,000, $10,000, or $15,000. However, it is expected that most will be required to pay a minimum of $10,000. According to the U.S. government, these funds will be returned to the country's guests if they leave American territory on time, in accordance with the visa conditions.
The whole, I think it will be a little unfair with the visitors because it's a lot of money for them. Because normally, I think when you come here, you spend, if you are here for 10, 15 days, you will spend maybe $4,000 or $5,000 But if it's another 15 grand on top, it's just a lot.
The State Department has not given a clear answer as to how many countries will be on that list. However, it is evident that these countries include, first and foremost, several states that fell under Trump's ban: Chad, Eritrea, Haiti, Myanmar, and Yemen, whose citizens are known for high rates of overstaying their visas. According to the U.S. Travel Association, visitors from these countries make up less than 0.01% of the total flow of arrivals to the U.S.
It's going to generate significant headlines and could create a perception that the U.S. is less welcoming than it once was. And it's that perception which is so important for us to address. I'm not worried about keeping out the traveler who would overstay their visa. I'm worried about keeping out the millions of people who want to come to the United States, spend their money, and go home and tell their friends and family to do the same thing.
The Republican-controlled Congress passed a comprehensive financial package in July that also includes a $250 visa integrity fee for all non-immigrant visas. This fee can also be returned to citizens who comply with their visa conditions.
This is a fee that would make Ticketmaster blush in terms of its cynical approach. It's stealing money from people who want to come here and should be putting that money in the pockets of small businesses, in local communities, and not be giving it to the U.S. federal government.
Amid the tightening of the visa regime, interest in the U.S. remains high, including among citizens of Armenia, as our country has always been among the leading nations in terms of the number of applicants relative to its population. In 2016, a record 267,000 applications were registered for the green card. Then in 2019, that number decreased to 160,000, which was the lowest figure since 2014. It should be noted, however, that applying does not yet mean winning. After winning, participants must go through an interview and a series of other processes. According to the U.S. State Department, the number of green card winners from Armenia has fluctuated from 1,500 to nearly 4,000, which was recorded in 2024. 2019, 1,738 winners, 2020, 1,422 winners, 2021, 2,293 winners, 2022, 2,066 winners, 2023, 3,525 winners, 2024, 3,869 winners, 2025, 2,971 winners. There are no exact figures on illegal immigration from Armenia to the U.S. At the beginning of this year, it was reported that the U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement (ICE) service is preparing to deport 2,808 citizens of Armenia, but specialists at the agency are convinced that the real number is much larger.
Throughout the week, I avoided all opportunities to talk about drugs, but this topic continues to circulate frequently in the newsfeed. Yesterday, on the Mehdi Agarak Road, patrols found approximately 13 kilograms of a substance resembling marijuana. 3 people were arrested, 1 man and 1 woman at the scene and another the next day on the Yerevan-Yeras Road. We have covered this painful topic, a problem with ever-growing consequences, in a report.
From the smuggling of narcotics to their illegal sale on social networks, the merchants of fabricated dreams are changing their tactics. But the law enforcement system, which seeks to stop their destructive activities, is not standing still, constantly enriching its arsenal in the fight against drug trafficking. According to data from the Armenian police, cases of drug circulation and sales have shown a downward trend in recent years. In 2023, 5,070 cases of circulation and 2,802 cases of sales were recorded. In 2024, there were 3,639 and 1,910. And in the first half of 2025, there were 1,889 and 1,051. In one of the latest and most recent cases, the police uncovered a drug smuggling operation. 3 citizens, one of whom was previously sentenced to life and had been conditionally released, collaborated with foreign associates to bring a large quantity of methamphetamine and marijuana to Armenia for illegal sale. They have been arrested. Law enforcement officials told our media partner, HETK, that a significant portion of the drugs imported into Armenia is re-exported, making Armenia a transit country. The main source of importation is Iran.
In the Republic of Armenia, considering our geographical position and our relations with neighboring states, naturally the only country that can serve as an exit is Georgia. However, we have information that there have been cases where a mass of drugs transported to Georgia later ended up in Ukraine via transit routes. It was not concealed, meaning we were informed in advance about the passage of the drugs, and the RA police did not prevent the crime for the sole reason of understanding where the drugs would ultimately end up.
How is it possible to get drugs across the border when cars and people are checked and roads and checkpoints are controlled? According to law enforcement, some individuals transport drugs into Armenia by swimming across the Arax River, then throwing them over the fence to the Armenian side, where they are picked up and transported by pre-arranged associates. According to the police, such cases are not few. Law enforcement officials recall a case where supposed jewelry boxes imported from Iran were made entirely of a methamphetamine-type drug. And how do minors find out where to find the hidden drugs? It's clear, through Telegram channels. According to the police, that platform does not cooperate with law enforcement agencies, which is why it has become one of the main links in drug distribution. In 2023, 559 such pages were discovered. In 2024, 494, and in the first half of 2025 alone, 500. However, the number of blocked pages is 10 times smaller, 59 in 2023, 86 in 2024, and only 25 in the first half of 2025.
The use of telecommunication systems has today become one of the main tools for drug trafficking. In Europe, for example, Telegram and Snapchat are widespread, and the third main platform is considered the darknet, that is, the dark web. Through the latter, criminal groups are able to use closed platforms and websites to import larger quantities of drugs into the territory of, say, the Republic of Armenia.
Data on individuals who have recovered from addiction resulting from drug use are not available in our police force. Meanwhile, according to specialists dealing with the problem, their registration and the analysis of the dynamics of statistical data on those seeking treatment and those freed from addiction would significantly contribute to the coordinated fight against the drug scourge. Monica Hayastanic, ReOpen Media.
Following the trail of natural anomalies, Kamchatka's Klyuchevskoy volcano continues to erupt after a powerful earthquake. The volcano has been assigned a red aviation hazard code after another ash emission to an altitude of 11.1 kilometers. Meanwhile, RIA Novosti reports that the most powerful magnetic storm of the last 2 weeks is expected on Earth tomorrow. And did you think I wasn't going to talk about Jennifer Lopez this week? Believe me, there is still more to say. The singer has made her interest in Armenian culture more than obvious. In addition to Armenian jewelry and a kopad, she took with her a 19th century jug from Van. The jug had been placed in the singer's room to aesthetically present the jewelry, which was on her confirmed list of gifts. And final news, the little creators of great victories, Vajeho Vagimyan has become the European under-16 rapid chess champion, the Federation reports. We'll be back tomorrow with the very latest. Thanks for watching. I'm Sona Tumanyan. Stay informed with ReNews. Goodbye.